I represent the Pune University. It is a state university in India, but perhaps the largest one. So roughly around 500,000 students, they get their graduation done from the Pune University. So let me briefly introduce about this particular university. As I said, it has 52 departments on the campus, 17 schools, and virtually we are, beside medicine, in every other field, we actually have our own footprint. When it comes to the national level, basically, let me tell you that the University Grant Commission is the apex body which control the traditional education in India, and for every other discipline, whether it is medical, whether it is technical, any other professional, there are regulatory bodies. Like in case of medical, it is the National Medical Council which regulates the education in India. In the morning, two of the speakers they spoke about the new education policy or national education policy that got rolled out in 2020. And then, although it is called as a national education policy, but we have 38, 39 states, and each state basically has the freedom to accept or reject the policy. So there are few states, roughly around 20 number, who have accepted the policy. What is this policy speaks about? In fact, it has opened up education which otherwise was not open to the other countries as such. So now there are more opportunities of collaborations, more opportunities of exchange of faculties, more opportunities of giving joint degrees, more opportunities of joining. So 1 year you can perhaps do it in Kazakhstan and 2 others perhaps in India, or vice versa. 2 years in India and 1 year perhaps in Kazakhstan. And there can be a joint degree. Supposedly like in case of Profi, when we sign a collaboration with them, we definitely can think of creating a joint degree program wherein basically the degree would be endorsed by the Pune University as well as the Profi University. So these are the opportunities that actually have been rolled out through new education policy. It has become very multidisciplinary in character. It has not remained very domain specific. While doing engineering, you can also do performing arts, you can also do commerce, you can do professional courses like management. And then the structure is such that in the entire structure, everything got embedded. You can have internship, you can have on-job training.
Honorable founder of this university, his proud parents, his wife, honorable rector, all the faculty members and my dear students, the delegation from India, I begin by thanking Mr. Sandeep Singh for taking us here for this particular venture of having a broad-based collaboration with Profi University, a university which everyone should be proud of, because what started as I am told, as a small training center has metamorphosed into a big professionals gathering university. So big round of applause for the founder for creating that kind of aspirational work for everybody. So I see that there is a mix of all the professional branches, students who are coming here, and as the member of the advisory board, our responsibility is to create some kind of pathways for everybody which can be sustainable and which can bring value addition to whatever you are learning today. So in the morning speech, the founder spoke about two things. One is the scale and another was the speed. So India brings scale, Uzbekistan brings speed, and as an advisory board members, we are here to provide a synergy as well as system, so that with these 4S, we can make lot of things in a very different and a professional way, which probably is the aim of forming this advisory board. So what we can make for all of you? As of now, I was listening to the video which was there starting in the beginning, that this degree of this university is recognized across Europe, right? So what if your degree is recognized in 162 countries? How can we work on those lines? What if your publications are reflected in all the Q1 journals? How do we work on those lines? What if your curricula are embedded with lots and lots of hands-on training, maybe on patients, cadavers, and simulations? How can we work on it? So these are the purposes. I think this is a broad forum, and where the detailing of all these matters may or may not be possible in such a short period of time. But definitely in every program run by this university, we are there to create value addition, as told by the founders, the initial speakers in today's function. The national education policy which has been launched in India gives us an edge that we can accommodate lot of things in terms of creating joint, twinning, dual degree programs. We can have some kind of observerships of all you students in our country where the patient load is very high. You can learn on cadavers, you can learn on simulations. As Professor Mitra was saying in the morning, you know what are the newer things in immunohematology, what are the things in probably gene therapy, what are the things in PRPs. All these newer knowledge systems can be embedded in your programs, and we are there to provide whatever support is required. As far as my university and myself is concerned, I represent a university located in center of India, that is Nagpur, the Datta Mege Institute of Higher Education and Research. I am the Vice Chancellor of that university. Recently, the university is being taken over by the Adani Group. All of you must have heard about the Adani Group. So that group chairman has pledged around $6 billion for developing healthcare systems in and around India. So in next 10 years, we are going to come up with 25 new medical schools across India, along with 600 bedded to 300 bedded corporate hospitals at each centers apart from medical colleges. So look at the level of opportunities you people will have to work there. So how you can be made eligible to work there? Can we give some kind of training at this center itself? So the moment you people come out of this school, yes, people like us recognize you as the person who will be housing these hospitals. So we wish to work with that. In the morning, founder and Mr. Sandeep sir told us about the plans of setting up a big super specialty hospital in this area. So super specialty is the need of the hour. What if the super specialists from India come here and give you the same training which they are imparting to the students there in India? That will definitely add value to whatever programs you are doing. We can discuss on micro plans of these in a core group meeting, not possible in such a big way. But yes, my dear children and the faculty member, there is a huge amount of opportunity that this advisory board brings to all of you. You should make best use of it, and as a representative of this advisory board, I promise that we will be leaving no stone unturned to make this university more informative, more value added, more synergistic, and more employable for all the stakeholders present here. I thank the organizers for providing me the opportunity to work with all of you. I pledge that I will be working at whatever best possibility I can do for betterment of this university. Later we can have discussions on micro levels. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
I think many people have already spoken about AI, and I'm going to talk about how AI is being used in healthcare and especially at our hospital. So we are working very closely. As you know, it's like a very cost-effective program that we want to do with AI. So as you can see, I represent Sai Tirupati University. It is a university founded in 2017, and we have 9 constituent colleges offering various medical courses and non-medical courses. And it comes with 1400 bedded hospital that is located, and as we know, we have 2 super specialty hospital. One which is we got recently, and which I will give you a glimpse of it through a video. On various topics including medical tourism and leadership and moving forward. So this is our university that you can see. So thank you, this is better. So we have, as you see, we have MBBS medical program and as well postgraduate programs. So we offer recently we have started with 2 international programs. One, as you can see, is programs for international doctors and students, where we talk about where doctors get exposure to various medical facility, real-time cases, and along with that, complex surgical cases that we do with the doctors. And then we have a program for students where we see structured internship programs, where students get exposure to, again, best quality medical practices. And the best part is that they gain practical knowledge and see various kind of patients that is available to them. So this is another hospital that we recently got, and this is multi-super specialty hospital. So I would like to give a glimpse of it through a video.
At PIMS City Hospital, healing is not just about medicine. It is about people, purpose, and responsibility.
How we can combine treatment and tourism together. So we call it like treatment with tourism. So yes, so as you see, it's got me, as many people have already spoken about how AI is being used. Now I'm going to talk about how AI is being used in healthcare and how we are being impacted at this point. So why AI is required and why healthcare needs intelligence. So these are the 4 key factors that I see. One being the rising healthcare costs, other being workforce challenges, as many people think about how we can reduce the cost by using AI, and I'll give you an example, and how we can prevent errors that are existing in healthcare using AI. And say last but not the least is more about personalized care. You know, how you can use the patient data, genetics, and health risk history to have a tailored treatment program for patients. So I think these are the 4 technological backgrounds that are combining together to form a solution. One, of course, AI, machine learning, deep learning, and natural language processing. I will not get into the details of this. I know the people are some are from non-tech background. So let's start about the trajectory that you see, how AI is evolving. Currently, according to 2024, the AI market is 26.6 billion, which is projected to go around 187 billion by 2030, which is 7x growth that you see. So how AI is being changed, and that is amounting to 38.5 CAGR growth percentage. You know, so as you see, the trajectory is here to stay, and there are a lot of questions about will AI eliminate the workforce, will it impact, and how we can use AI mostly in ethical manner. So, how this diagnostic is changing and how AI is getting the unseen things that is not exposed to natural eye. So if you talk about medical imaging, it could be radiology, CT, MRI, where images are converted into high resolutions and then it can identify things which is not easily identified by human eyes. So that is one impact that you see. In terms of pathology, cancer cell detection using biopsy slides, which is improving the diagnostic consistency. And genomics, where you have genetic data combining a lot of DNAs and which can be processed in like less seconds, and we can get a positive output from there. And early detection of cancer, so that is also where you have a patient profile in front of you. And with the help of AI, diagnosis goes through different models and it creates a solution where you can say prediction of any health disease, especially cancer, can be detected at an early stage. Now, why AI and why we should have an AI in healthcare? So, I see it like we can have a personalized medicine looking at the patient history. Then clinical decision support, what is the right amount of dosage, what is the right doctors making right prescription for the patient. And then robotic surgery, which is becoming popular now. Patients are trusting AI and robots more than human beings because the performance of AI-enabled surgeries is high, less chances of errors and high precision. So that is why it is being used. And even the drug discovery, classic example, when we were going through COVID, and AI was one of these where the vaccine could be produced at an early stage. Imagine, had it not been a technology-enabled system, we could have not got vaccine because vaccine takes years to produce. And there is a classic example, there are some vaccines which have not been produced till now. So this is how AI has been able to advance that. Now, of course, this is a flow that I'm talking about, administrative flow. I'll speak about it, how administrative flow is being enabled in our hospital. And then you have ambient listening and remote monitoring. So this is one thing that we have already enabled that you see. So whenever you get a call, I don't know if your university is doing, we have everything is inbound and outbound calling is through AI. So once a patient or a customer calls in the hospital, he is being received, the call is received by an AI assistant, and that patient gets appointment booked through an AI. So we have no human interference in this case. And when patient leaves or he comes, when he is done with his diagnostics or any consultation, he gets a feedback call that is also done by AI. So that is why, so best advantages you see using the system is like you have 24/7 availability, cost effective scaling, faster response time, higher conversion rates of patients, which can be not as compared to human intelligence, and improved compliance. So, as you know, in India there are two areas that we have to focus on, rural and urban, and the gap becomes sometimes so big. Healthcare facilities not reaching to rural India. So, we under a foundation formed by us, it's called Leela Foundation. So we are working with them to use AI and using very simple smartphones. So for example, as you see, we're working closely with detection of oral and cervical cancer. On the screen you see how we are working with oral cancer. So you use a smartphone which can capture high resolution image, as you see here, right? We can have an intermediate device in between, and the image is captured and taken to the next level, as you see here. So the image is taken here. As you see on the inputs, you see white light image. Then it has been exposed to autofluorescence image, right? Which can see how there is a fluorescence light, and it can carve out using AI what is the defect or chances of cancer or images in this. And then there is a model that is there, multi-input model. It goes into that, and you see how the cancer can be detected using simple smartphone images, right? So here is an example where you are trying to detect oral cancer using simple smartphone. Why this model is being evolved is using in rural health India where the healthcare facility is not great. So by the means of smartphone, we can use this, right? Next, on the screen you see cervical cancer detection, where use of smartphones again with the help of an intermediate devices, we capture the photograph as you see, right? And then it is gone through an AI model, and then that AI model helps us to evolve whether to predict what is the real finding in this case. So best advantage is where you have where healthcare cannot reach to remote areas, we can use this technology to go ahead. Now these are again examples of where real world impact where AI has taken it. You have example of NHS, England, Liebridge Health and John Hopkins University and IBM Watson using for cancer detection in the past. So this was where the early starter starts, where there were earlier detection used by these universities and other people have evolved over it.